Do you know how Blender's noise texture actually works? Because odds are you might not. So that's why I'm going to go over exactly what these controls actually do. And hopefully understanding that will make procedural texturing just a little bit easier. Okay, so we all know this, right? This is just noise. And I'm going to keep it simple and just use the base noise texture with fractal Brownian motion. That's what this stands for. But a lot of these controls actually still do apply to other types of noise textures in Blender. So most people understand what scale is. It's just how big is my noise? And that's a pretty simple concept to understand. And so what's interesting about these three controls is this is all technically dealing with scale. Because if we look at detail and look at the tooltip, what it's actually doing is adding another octave of noise on top of the noise that you have already. And so then what the hell is an octave? An octave is just another layer of that same noise with the frequency doubled. And also on each successive octave, the amplitude or the strength of the noise is usually halved. So since we know that detail is just how many extra octaves am I layering in, if our noise texture with a detail of 1 is just one noise texture and then mixed with another one with its scale doubled to 16, then if we do that with these two noise textures with a scale of 8 and 16 and mix those together, we should get the exact same result as this one. So if we view that, we can see that these are exactly the same. And then so next we have to discuss roughness. And the roughness is basically just a control of how much detail we're actually adding. So if we take our roughness slider and we scale this all the way back down, we're gonna see the detail doesn't do anything anymore. And that's because roughness is essentially a scalar multiplier of these octaves that are getting added on top. So when you increase the roughness, you're increasing the amount that those extra noise layers are allowed to contribute to the rest of this noise. And then finally, we have the lacunarity control. And if we think of these octaves as just scaled up versions of our existing noise, then we can think of lacunarity as the actual scalar number that we're using to get to those bigger values. So I'm going to set my detail back to 1, so we just have one extra layer of detail. And if I up my lacunarity, you can see that that second layer of noise that's getting added onto the first is now getting scaled by 4.38 instead of the base 2. And honestly, it's a slider that I don't touch very much, but it can be useful to understand these things. And then there's distortion. I'm not going to talk about distortion other than to tell you that it distorts it, because Blender's documentation doesn't really go over what exactly it means. And so the formula is kind of actually floating around somewhere in Blender's code base. And if you're wondering how distorting textures with other textures works, let me know and I can make a video about that.